Hopefully, yeah, I think everyone must have got the new link. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Bodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ridavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Parnaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Vridaduhe Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachanam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunendra Rutra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidhu Sura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyah Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So the shloka Sarvadharman Parityajya, yesterday the speaker who spoke, he really, used that shloka so well to say that at the end of the day, I may be leading such a large organization, but I just surrender everything, Sarvadharman Parityajya, whatever I'm doing, I just surrender to Krishna and then he takes care of me. All my sukha, all my dukkha, everything, all my problems, everything, he's my partner, So this shloka was so beautifully articulated. So we are looking at the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and I know some of you have not been here for the last 2 weeks, so I'll just do a recap as to where we are. So, as you know, Arjuna had asked about 7 questions, and out of the 7 questions, we found that Krishna answered almost all of them within 2 shlokas. But then the last question, which is Antakale Ishvara Smaranam, that part of it, he is elaborating in the whole 8th chapter. And the significance of this particular thing is that, when Krishna says, you have to remember at the end, when your journey in this life is over, when, you're ready to give up this clothes, just like, for example, some of you have retired and you know what it means, no longer do you have to wear Western clothes, no longer do you have to put a lot of makeup and everything. You can be in your own swabhava, right? Now you have gone back home, so to speak, right? You've gone back to who you are. So too, I think Krishna is trying to say that when you're ready to give up this clothing, which is your body and everything, just come to me. This is where you started from me. Now you come back to me, So that is the ultimate message for us. But, is that really very easy? So that part of it is where he's coming to. And in my reflection time, we'll talk about why it is not easy to think about who I am, So he's basically telling Arjuna that the only reason you think you are not me is because over a period of time, or long period of time, so many different janmas, you have accumulated so many desires. And all these desires is who you think you are, right? So he says at the end of when you leave from this body, that is the ultimate journey. And that ultimate journey is available for us here itself. And in this ultimate journey, he says, just clean your mind completely of all the desires. And again, I have to use a quote from yesterday's talk, which this person, Nikhil Vij, he gave, which was wonderful. Nikhil Vij from Oracle, India. He said, when he goes to his ashram, he has to do one chore, which is, gobar, right? Gobar means cow dung. Okay. He has to literally clean the place. I mean, here is this big vice president of a company, right? He has to go there and he has to clean all this cow dung out of this particular area. And he says that is such a cleansing thing for him, because it is like for us, we have this gobar in our mind, gobar which makes us think who we are not. And we have to take that thing out before I can exit out of here, So just like how when we go to a hotel, when we go to a hotel, we rent, we pay for this room, which is clean, absolutely clean when we go in. But when we leave the hotel, how do we leave it? We say, oh, the cleaning lady can take care of it, right? But if I can leave a room which I have just rented for a few days in its absolute cleanliness before I go. So when I go out of here, my mind is completely clean. So I'm totally in with my Swarupa, my Lord, who is shining within myself. So that is that Nishkama Upasaka, we have to know no kamas, no desires. The only goal I have at that moment is to be part of that Ishvara, part of that Krishna. So that is where this reflection time, I want to ask each one of you, how can we get there? What do you think now? Is it even, first of all, necessary? That is one. And if it is necessary, how can I do it? And the third question is, what am I doing right now towards getting there? So those are the three things I just wanted us to sort of reflect upon and see what you think about it. I mean, and all answers are right, anything. So starting with, is it really necessary? How many of us are convinced that we have to cleanse our mind completely before we exit out of here? Great. What do you want to say, Neenu, then? Why do you think it is even necessary? We're fine, right? We are at this.
Because if our mind is dirty, anything we put into it will also become dirty. So unless it's clean, how can anything can clean before we go anything? Like, I don't know how to put it.
No, perfect. And just I want to just give a simple example, to what you just said. It's like, I'm going. Yeah, go ahead.
Like if we tell somebody to have tea and already our cup is full, how will they pour the tea into it? How will we get the knowledge? We are already full of ego, bad things. So we have to empty our cup before we get something into it.
That is right. And another thing is also, suppose I'm making kheer, you know, we are making kheer in the house, and then we have this big vessel. And, like I'm told that I have to make kheer for Lord Krishna. And somebody tells me at the last minute, and I just take the vessel, but I don't even, and without even looking at the vessel, I'm going to the refrigerator, pouring all the milk into the vessel and starting to make it. And suppose that vessel was dirty. Imagine how much of effort which I've taken is all gone for a waste, right? So that vessel has to be completely cleaned before I can make that kheer or payasam for Krishna, right? So in that sense is what Lord Krishna is saying, nishkama, kama means desires. Nish means absolutely no desires. So without any desires, let us have a clean mind, and that will help us to reach that ultimate goal. So Lord Krishna is telling us, I've given you that patram in this life. And that patram has been used completely to get rid of all from the previous lives. Just get rid of all those karmas, so that when you're ready, you will just be so clean that you can see the reflection of me in you, right? That much clean it has to be. If the mirror has to be, if it is mirrors clean, I can see my reflection. So too, in this case, I have to be so clean that the Lord can shine in me, right? So that is what he's trying to, so that is the first question. So we have to have, it is necessary. Second thing is, how can we do it? How can we make that patram clean? Of course, in this example I gave you, we just have to scrub it. But what is the scrubbing in our lives?
So focus on the present. Okay. Go ahead.
That's fine. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead, Anand.
You go ahead, Anand. Yeah.
Okay. Harvam, focusing on the Nishkama karma is probably something, start with small,
Mm-hmm.
In the transactional world, try to help the, next person, or so that's how it will start. And then realize like Manav Seva is Madhav Seva.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, see how we can increase that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very good.
Yeah, this method.
Madhuri,
Yeah.
you would say?
Yeah, I was thinking like the same thing like Anand said. So we have to focus on the present and the vision, the goal we have. I want to make prasad. So I shouldn't be thinking like or worrying like what happened other day or something like that, or expect to be like, like how they made it or she made it kind of a thing. But focus on like what I'm doing, right? Clean my, like, the past experiences or something like that, the negative experiences, what I had, but focus in the present and do your best. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So the thought, so that even to focus in the present and to do my best, the kind of scrubbing that you're doing is filling up your mind with good knowledge, which allows you to think that way, right? So that is the to answer the second question.
Right. The negativity, we should take it out, like,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And but then try to, get the good knowledge, whatever you learned about that goal you are going to do, the knowledge you got it. Okay. Yeah.
Correct. So then the third part of it, what are we all doing about it? What are the various practices that we are incorporating in our life in order to do that? Because again, here, it says yam yam bhava smarati, tam tam bhava apnoti, prapnoti. So just as a person thinks, so he becomes. So what are we doing in order to become that patram which is completely clean? So one thing, of course, we're all definitely doing a lot of shravanam, which is listening to lectures, by God's grace, we have a Chinmaya mission in Ann Arbor, which, where Sharda Aunty is doing a lot of great work and everything. We are, and of course, in this day and age, thanks to COVID, I guess, is so many people are giving so many lectures and all that. But those listening is very good, but it has to be followed with a certain amount of cleansing that also has to happen, right? So, or what Anandji was saying, doing some nishkama karma, by karma, we can do that. By taking the name of the Lord every time I do it, Ishvara Smaranam, and by continuously having a compassionate love for everybody. So all that will help me to absorb the knowledge. So the purity of mind has to be there in order to get the clarity of knowledge. So I have to keep on purifying my mind. And then only then this yam yam bhavam smarati. Only then when I think of the Lord, I can really become that Lord, so to speak, So that is what this chapter is trying to tell us to do. So then that is why this question, how does attain this one, is one keeps on remembering Ishvara all the time. And here we have a choice. That's the greatness about Hindu religion. It's so holistic, so holistic, because apart from giving us symbols, which we have God represented by all the symbols, by all the forms, for those of us who want to have a human form. But then we have our religion, Sanatana Dharma, is so great. It tells us that, even the trees outside, are gods, right? That's a famous Birbal and Akbar story about how, when Birbal and Akbar were walking along, Birbal would look at every tree and do namaskar. And Akbar would ask, what is this? Why are you doing namaskar to everybody, So he couldn't understand that aspect of how in our religion it's so holistic. We extend our compassion and love not just to human beings, but I have to say this, in this day and age, especially after COVID, right? There was a study that was done where they found that during COVID, they had more and more people actually getting pets in the house, especially dogs, because they want to show love to somebody. And during COVID time, because of isolation, you couldn't do that, right? At least this is my theory on this. So, you got pets, the house dogs, and you really became compassionate, affectionate. So our thing goes not just, it goes even beyond dogs, beyond even to small insects, like in the Jain religion, right? You have people wear the kind of a mask all the time because they don't even want to injure any being, any mosquito, I guess, even by mistake. So that's how the whole thing about our Sanatana Dharma is we have God represented by a human form right here. But later we will talk about, but God can be represented even by a pratika. This is all pratima, but pratika meaning a stone, like a saligramam. Saligramam and also our lingams. All these are symbols which allows my mind to focus and concentrate. So the idea is that, especially in this day and age of social media, where a mind can go all over all the time, we have to keep on bringing it to one place. And by keeping it one place, to that extent, the mind is not getting polluted and drawn into bringing in more gobar into our minds. So this is what the whole idea, and that is why chapter 8 starts off initially itself by saying how it is important to do this Saguna Ishvara Upasanam, which is why we'll see up to the Shloka 15 where he talks about it. So in Shloka 5, that's what we talked about in, how before getting a chance to meet Mr. God, what we need to do. And here there are literally three different ways of attaining that God is given. So we have, there are three, which is Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti, and Krama Mukti. So these three are the ways in which are the paths towards meeting that ultimate Lord. So Jivan Mukti, of course, is through Jnana Yoga, and Videha Mukti and Krama Yukti through this Bhakti Marga, where I'm trained to God and I go to Brahmaloka, and then from Brahmaloka, I continue to get to that absolute moksha or liberation. So three ways. Liberation at the end of the day is that state where I am meeting God. So this is the part he said. So so antakale cha mame swaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhav yati na anastyatra samshaya. Absolutely no doubt that we'll be able to reach this God. So that is what he said in 6. We went through it already. Yam yam vyapi smaran bhava tyajatyante kalevaram tam tame vaiti kaunteya sada sadbhava bhavitaha. So again, the word kalevaram is such an important word, which is referring to our human body. And he's more and more trying to tell us, give up your body. What are you holding on to your body for? At the end of the day, body is only a vehicle. So just give up that. So the shloka 7, we said, Tasmat, therefore, sarveshu, at all times, kaleshu, at all times, sarveshu kaleshu, at all times, Mam Anusmara. Think of me when you're doing, like even when you're doing payasam, think of me. When you're driving your vehicle, think of me. Keep me in front. As Nikhil said yesterday, make God your life partner. He is your first partner. So just make him as your life partner. Mayat pito mano buddhihi mame vaishya samshaya. There is absolutely no doubt. So this is, we went through all this. And then shloka number 8, then he says about how can I really start to think about him. So the second question that I had raised is, what are we doing? How are we doing it? Right? So that is the part that, he says, start cultivating a thought habit, which is completely distraction free. Just having we had the pictures of gods in various forms. We can take any god. Like this last 9 days when we had Navaratri here, it was only Devi. So having her in mind and doing puja to her and making her come to my rescue whenever I need will give my mind so much of chitta shuddhi. And chitta ekagrata meaning that focus, completely focusing on that Lord and completely understanding that alone will take me with no distraction. So in that meditation, I continue to focus. So this will then, this is trying to say that abhyas is needed. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. By that state of being in that meditation, Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa na anyagamina, without allowing the mind to go anywhere else, I focus on that ultimate, that supreme Purusha, Param Purusham Divyam, that Purusha which is Divyam, that is resplendent, radiant, Yati Parthanu Anuchintayan. So he's telling Partha or Arjuna, by doing that, one tends to go there. So then shloka 9, you see that there's a series of shlokas, beautiful poem. It's literally a poem where he talks about the greatness of that Purusha. That Ishvara who has this greatest qualities. And his qualities, of course, is much, much superior than all of us. Because again, only when somebody's qualities are superior do we start looking towards that Lord. So he says, Kavin Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyam Smaran Anusmaridya Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasaf Parastat. So here he talks about the various qualities of that Ishvara, which somebody can remember only when the mind is very subtle. So right now, a mind is very gross indicating that only when I have we have conditioned our mind to think about objects which have some kind of substance, that is how we remember it, right? Suppose, I ask somebody to say, think about, it's amazing. You can't even think, in a mind, there is not even a word that comes where there is no grossness associated with it. There is no language even to think about that way. Everything we have already given it a form. So here we are asked to think of something which is beyond a form. And so the words that are chosen are so beautiful. He says, Kavin, on the omniscient, where omniscient, which is all-knowing. How do you think of something which is all-knowing? It's basically you're looking at something which is beyond time, beyond space even. For us, everything, all our forms are filled with space. Like our whole body itself, I mean, if you look at it, there is a lot of space and water and everything, Of course, there's a little bit of earth also there and fire and air. But beyond space, we are not able to think. Beyond time, we are not able to think. So Kavi means omniscient, Sarvagnya. So that he says, and then Puranam, which is the most ancient, indicating that something which is actually, even though it's ancient, it means something which is always new. So that is what Purana means, which is never something which perishes. Then Anusha Sitaram, which controls everything, which actually gives you the fruit for whatever you have done. So it is that Brahman, which is giving us the fruit, but it is formless. It doesn't have hands, nothing. It is that ultimate formless part of it, which he says, Anusha Sitaram, which gives you the karma phala. And then Sarvasya Dhataram, which is the substratum. And then Anoraniyam, again, bringing about the absolute subtleness of that ultimate Purusha. For us, we are used to thinking of Purusha as something which is huge. And it is Brihat, it is Brahman. One of the definitions for it is it's Brihat, which is so huge, and so big that I cannot even see it. But it is also that subtle. Like, for example, if you look at the atoms, right? We can't even see an atom, but we know that every material, like something as big as this cup, actually is made of, it's a polymer, but the polymer comes from a monomer. The monomer comes from the atoms, the molecules. The molecules are nothing but atoms joined together, but I can't see the atom, right? So this is even much subtler than that. So that is what he was trying to show. And then Achintya Rupam, we can't even imagine what that Rupam is. That is the state of that Brahman. So, and then Aditya Varnam, we talked about like the sun, and Tamasaf Parastat, beyond any kind of ignorance, beyond any kind of darkness. So then he says, Krishna, after describing that state of Brahmanhood, he says, then he's asking, what are the things that you should, how should you practice this meditation? what are the things that you have to think about? So he starts to gives us a technique of meditation. And that technique of meditation is what in the shlokas from 10 onwards he says, Prayana kale manasa achalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bhruvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. So that divyam, that purusha can be meditated upon only when I am able to control my senses, control my pranas. So prayana kali, at the time of my departure, manasa, so I have to control the mind without, when it's completely not wandering at all, and with a strong willpower, yoga balena, you are focusing the pranas and bringing them to the center. So now this is again, there is a lot of principles of yoga and hatha yoga, all these are given here, which I'm definitely not an expert to talk about it. But I'm sure if you go to somebody who practices yoga, they will be able to give a better idea of what does it mean to meditate upon this chakra, which is there in between the two eyebrows. So that part of it he's trying to say. So pranam aveshya, which is, as I said, trying to control the breath, and yoga balena. So I have to use such a strong concentration, yoga balen, manasa achalena, which is again trying to, without allowing the mind to go anywhere. Paramam purusham divyam, where I'm trying to see that to get to that Purusha, which is Paramam, which is, everywhere, and who is the form of that resplendent light. When we say light, light of knowledge, you can say there's nothing much more brighter, brilliant than that Purusha. So the technique that was given is a little more, like I said, a Hatha Yoga kind of a technique, where the control of pranas, everything is being asked for. Now, we are talking about the next part, which is the Krama Mukti. Okay, so here he's trying to say, Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti, Vishanti Yat Yatayo Vitaragaha, Yadichanti Brahmacharyam Charanti, Tatte Padam Sangrahena Pravakshye. So he is trying to, again, in order to understand that Brahman, which is so subtle and which is completely aksharam, imperishable, this only the knowers of Vedas can do that. Knowers of Vedas, which is people who have understood, who have studied the Vedas, and also sages, yatayaha, sages who may not have necessarily understood, but who have complete faith and who have completely given up, dispassionate, which is, vitaragaha, it says, meaning where all the likes and dislikes have gone away. Actually, ragaha here means likes. So where somebody who has completely is not being controlled by what he likes, basically her desires. And Ichanti, yet who are studying the scriptures. So he's trying to give that three examples, Vedavid, Yateha, and Brahmachari here. So we saw this also last time, but I'm just going through it because just trying to bring it back to, your attention here. So here he's saying Vedavid is those committed seekers, Yateha, committed seekers. And then Vitaragaha, like we said, somebody who's completely convinced that ultimately I am wanting to seek that God who is infinite. And I'm not looking for joys in the finite. So ragaha, the word raga meaning desire, can come only when I have a desire for something which is a gross object. So here we are looking at somebody who has gone beyond looking for gross objects and who is now focused, who's convinced that in this world which I'm living in, it's temporary and it can only give me so much amount of pleasure. Beyond this, I have to go for something which is totally infinite. So, yadit chanto brahmacharyam charanti. So he starts to practice brahmacharya from a point of view of being controlled. Okay. Now, brahmacharyam charanti can also mean that now he is convinced that his goal is something beyond this material world. And therefore, he becomes a brahmacharya seeking out his guru, So, yadit chanto brahmacharyam charanti, moving towards this, aham sangrahena pravakshe. And he says, I shall now define that Ishvara to you very well so that you also are convinced. So that's what he did. So now he describes again this process of meditation itself. He describes upon how one can start thinking about this. And this is where that I told you about the Pratima and the Alambaram, Pratima and Pratika Alambaram and a Pratima Alambaram. So he starts to say how I can start to focus. So in shlokas 12 and 13, which we did last week, Sarva Dwarani Sanyamya Manokriti Nirudhyacha Mudnya Dhayatmana Pranaha Astito Yoga Dharanam. So he says, closing all the gates. It's just like how, when I have to meditate, I look for a place which is very quiet. I go for a place where I can completely close all the doors and where there is no sound, anything which will disturb my five senses, right? So to here he's saying, it's not that you have to physically find a place and sit down and meditate, but here all that was talked about already in the 6th chapter, but now this being a little, where we are focusing on understanding what the Tat Padam is. Here he's saying the gates are 5 gates, like in chapter 4, I think, right? Navadware Pure Dehi. There are, our body has 9 gates. And so having closed all the gates, Sarvadvarani Sanyamya, Manaha Tridi Nirudhyacha, Mudnya Dhyayatmana Pranaha, Asito Yoga Dharana. So 4 steps he gives. First, there is a control of the sense organs. Then the second part is confining the mind within the heart. That is literally going inwards, bringing your mind bringing your mind completely within yourself. And then controlling the pranas and maintaining this position for an extended period of time, He says, having fixed the life breath, Asita Yoga, try engage in this practice of concentration. So that is what he's trying to show here. And because it's Sarva Dvarani Sanyamya Manakriti Nirudhyacha, so one aspect we can look at is how to do this is he's talking about concentration. So when we talk about concentration, this is where we said the concentration can be done on objects or objects which have a human form, which is what the Pratima Alambanam is, or a Pratika Alambanam. Pratika Alambanam, which is the objects which can allow my mind to focus on. So this is just a shloka from Vishnu Sahasranamam. Shiro Danva Pradeshe Shuchimani Vilasat Saikate Moktikanam. Then Meghashyama Pita Kauseyavasam Shrivat Sangam Kaustuvo Pasitangam. All these are showing you how I can focus my mind, So Vishnu Sahasranamam, I know sometimes we focus on just learning how to memorize it and how to say it, right? But each one of those words, and you would have seen Swami Chinmayananda's book, it says the meaning for each one And I think Shardanti has also done this. Whenever she does 10 shlokas of Vishnu Sahasranamam, she will take each word and explain the meaning of it. By even just focusing on one word, just the word Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnurva Shatkaro Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu, like that, even if I focus on them one word, that can take me to understanding the ultimate. Each one, like they say, all roads lead to Rome. So to here, ultimately, it leads to that Ishvara Upasana only. So we saw this too, whether it's a lingam or we have saligramams or we have Ganesha, in the form of this turmeric thing here. So in all these cases, we see about how they are all nothing but pratik alambanam, where we can really focus our attention. And we have already, like Arati and everything, what we do. In Arati, we have nothing but, we are focusing on the flame. So all these are ways in which we can develop our concentration. And this is what is given here. And then I think he's also talking about Asi Yoga Dharana. Okay. So, and from here, he's taking us to trying to focus on that Om Akshara. And this Om Akshara is also, given in many of the Upanishads. Etad Vaksharam Brahma, Etad Vaksharam Paramam, Etad Vaksharam Jnatva, Yo Yadichanti Tasya Tat. So ultimately, trying to say that Om itself represents Brahman. That Om is the ultimate. It represents that reality. So I need to focus on that Om, which is very important. And that is why he says, closing all your mind, keeping all your gates completely closed, bring that mind inside. Right now, a mind is going out through the senses outside, grabbing whatever comes, and we are trying to bring them in. He says, just close all your gates, get your mind to focus completely inside. So bring it close to the heart, where heart, like I said in Kaivalya Upanishad, is symbolically representing that Atman within ourselves. And move adhaya atmana param pranam. So, fix the life breath and do it. So, manohriti, bring it inside. So, then the question will come, what exactly is this Omkar Upasana, right? We need to know what this Omkar Upasana really is, because you're saying that if I focus on this Om, I can actually get mukti, right? The Krama Mukta, that mukti that we talked about. So tell me what that is. So, Om iti Vyaharan. So in the next shloka, we see that explanation of what that Om really is. So Om iti aksharam iti Om iti eka aksharam. Om iti eka aksharam Brahma. So if we have to describe by even earlier, we had described Brahma as that Brahman as something which is so subtle, anoraniyam, then, all that. Now, but then I want to give that Brahman some name. What name can I give? What is the shortest name I can give? What is the simplest name I can give? And that is why he says, let's call that as Om. So Om iti eka aksharam. Okay, that Brahman can be represented by this one word Om. Vyaharan anusmaran. So Vyaharan mam anusmaran. Uttering this, if you utter this, you're remembering me. Okay. Yaha prayati tyajan deham. He who departs thus when leaving this body, such a person, saha yati paramam gatim. So such a person attains that absolute goal. Very beautiful shloka. I mean, only yesterday, it was interesting, not yesterday, 2 days ago, Madhuri, our very, very good friend Kumar has departed, right? So Sharada's husband, Sharada Papineni's husband. Kumar.
Yes, yes, Sunitha.
That was really, I mean, I don't know, when Sharda sent me the note, I was just reminiscing so much about Kumar, how he used to come to a study group. And so Preeti reached out and she said, Auntie, what shloka should I remember when this happened? What shlokas in Bhagavad Gita? So beautiful. Yeah. So apart from this chapter 2, what we have this one, I think these are the kind of shlokas that we have to constantly keep remembering, chanting, right? Because at the end, Prayana Kali, I forgot to remind her actually some of the shlokas from chapter 8, but these shlokas are also very important to remember for all of us. And as we chant, but Om is the ultimate symbol to keep in front of us as we are going to exit out of this world. I know it sounds very spooky or whatever you might say, but for all of us from where we are, we have to start feeding this mind more and more of this, remembering the ultimate Lord and keeping. So this is a technique. Even if I cannot think of anything, I can just think of Om, 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 If I can just do my japa on Om, that is, we can do it. So Anusmaran Yap Prayati. So that is, as I'm leaving, I need to think about this Om. So, and I want to give this table here where we can summarize all the shlokas, and actually we're going to do shloka number 14, but you can see, he's trying to show about how, who are the different kind of people. So in verses 8 and 9, he talks about the Vedantin, a person who can meditate on that Nirguna Brahman. Then 10 is the yogi or the ascetic, combination of yoga and devotion. Through that, he remembers that ultimate Brahman. And Veda with sannyasi, the brahmacharin, Siddho, through study of Vedas, they practice self-control, non-attachment, and then put their attention on study. Such people are this Krama Mukti. We talked about the 3 ways of liberation. So Jivan Mukti is somebody who has completely recognized that the ultimate is Supreme Brahman. The Jnani and the yogis are those people. And then Krama Mukti is one step going towards that ultimate Brahman. So that's Krama Mukti here. And people who do Om, you can get to the Krama Mukti state, and ultimately through that absolute Jnanam can reach the Jivan Mukti state. So that is that. In shloka number 14, you will see that Krishna is giving one of the most simplest of ways to focus on that Ishvara. And the key point here, he says, is we have to do it without interruption, without, just like, Aja Taharaya, there's a shloka in Upadesha Saram, where Ramana Maharishi says, our attention or focus should be like this oil, oil which is a thick, viscous oil. It flows continuously, there is no break in it at all, right? So like that, he says, completely where the concentration is there and completely a focus. So he says, Ananya Chetaha Satatam Yomam Sparati Nityashaha. So somebody who completely is focused on me, Ananya, with nothing else, with Chetaha, the mind, and continuously, not thinking of anything, but continuously focus. Yaha Mam Smarati Nityashaha. He who remembers me daily. Tasya Aham Sulabhaha Partha. For that person, I will make it so easy. So see, such beautiful way, the flow of information in this chapter is amazing, isn't it? Starting with, if you look at Arjuna had questions. What are all those? First he wanted Krishna's thing to describe that Brahman, and he comes with all that words, the questions, and then slowly and slowly Krishna is taking one step at a time. Such beautiful. He's such a beautiful teacher. And in the beginning he described all the how that God is that ultimate is so small and everything. And now he's trying to say, okay, start to focus. And he gives him just one prescription, which is that Om. And even that Om, he says, do it in such a way that you can completely, just without any interruption, think of me constantly. Yaha mam smarati nityashaha. For him, I become easily attainable to such a ever steadfast bhakta. I will make sure that I will take you to me. So he just is giving that prescription here. And then in Shloka 15, he says, whether you're doing it by as a Jivan Mukti or a Krama Mukti, I will, just, if you remember me, he is giving him one more assurance. He's saying that you don't have to, again, it's like, and I think sometimes, I don't know, I'm just comparing this with the situation in India versus US, In US, because of the way, sometimes you're in a certain job and for whatever reason, whether the company is not doing well or there are some changes that they're doing in the organization, suddenly you're left without a job. And what do? In our minds, we are still focused, or, the train is running in my mind. But ultimately, but for whatever reason, it came to a full stop, or because of many reasons. But you want the train to continue to move on, right? And so you find another job and another job and another job. That's how it is with our lives too. We have so much of desire still. The train is keeping on moving in my mind. But I need that train to get out of the mind and move outside. So what do? I take another body to satisfy those desires. Then I take another body and another body, just like I'm taking one job after one job to another. See, in India, sometimes what I hear, it's very hard to let people go, So people just stay in the job forever. Well, I don't know if that is good too. Everything has its own pluses and minuses, right? So for that reason, Krishna is saying, you know what? I have given you this job. You do your best in that job. And just take that job as to be your last, So in 15, he's saying that if you were to do your absolute best, and that is why, you remember in the beginning, I had talked about what goals should we have. Ultimately, as I'm moving along, the only goal that is important, and this, I think it's not just for us, I have to tell you, as young as Shubham and all of them, guess what? You think your goal today is to work in Tesla and drive this big car and all that. All that is good, but your ultimate goal, hey buddy, is, remember, it is getting to that state of who you are ultimately. Everything else, we are just taking on roles, and all those roles are giving me a chance to exhaust my desires, but I need to come back. And that is why the Shloka 15, he says, he gives an assurance. He says, once you are completely convinced about this knowledge that I'm giving you, Krishna is telling Arjuna, and you start living it, guess what? You don't have to come back at all. You're done. You have attained your ultimate goal. So that is what he says. Mam upetya punarjanma. Having attained me, punarjanma dukkha alayam ashashvatam. why do you want to get to this world again? And why do you have to be kicked around? Don't allow yourself to be kicked around. You be the master of your life. So dukkha alayam, this world is full of dukkham. Buddhist philosophy, that's what they always say. This life is full of dukkham, shanika. Every moment it is nothing but dukkham. So get out of the place. Get out of this mode of thinking that I have more this to attain, that to attain. Nothing needs to be attained anymore. So na apnuvanti mahatmanava. So having attained me, you don't need another job. You don't need another body. Forget about it. So you don't need another birth. Because if you come back, again, it is dukkha alayam ashashvatam, which is number one, it's full of pain. Second thing is that it's very temporary anyway. So why bother? Na apnuvanti mahatmanaha. It's not, therefore, nobody, somebody who's convinced about it will not really want to come back. So is not taken by a realized soul, because they have recognized, they know what that highest perfection is. So sam siddhim paramam gatim kataha. So that person has actually reached that place. So will not want to come back. So that is the ultimate thing that Krishna is giving Arjuna as a prescription. So it's in this 15 shlokas, you can see how beautifully Krishna has taken Arjuna through this whole journey and is trying to convince him that, don't you want to do this? And that is why when I started with the questions in the beginning, is it necessary? Are we doing it? And why should we do it? It's just given here in this 8th chapter. For about 15 shlokas. We have just another 15 more shlokas to go to in this chapter, where he will just elaborate a little more on this aspect of it. Any questions? Any last questions here before we sign off?
Harigovinda, Bhajagovinda says Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jananam. So, which is said here like.
Fantastic, Anant. I'm so, I love the way you connected it. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punari Shayanam, right?
Jatare Sayanam.
Jatare Shayanam, Iha Samsare Dustare. Yeah,
exactly.
Pahimurari. Correct. He says exactly the same thing. Very beautiful connection. I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So in many different ways, people who are not reading Bhagavad Gita, but who are drawn to the to Bhajagovindam, the beautiful thing, you can see that, right? So very nice. So we'll discuss a little bit about this next week, about why is this world really, if you're not convinced that this world is a dukkha alayam, for us, everything's beautiful, it's rosy, it's like Las Vegas, everything is available, or it's like a cruise ship where there's enough food, enough entertainment, and we think, wow, this is reality, I love it, But he's trying to kind of shake us a little bit and say, there is much, much bigger reality than all of this. And so we'll do that next week. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you for summarizing the previous
Ah,
shlokas, Sunita. It's very nice.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Mm.
I enjoyed it too, you know.
Thank you so much, Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om, everyone.
Thank you, Sunita ji.
Hari Om.
Is
Let
the
me,
recording need to be stopped?
yes, that's what I
Hari
want
Om.
to do, but I don't know why it's not letting me. 1 second. Why is this? 1 second. Oh, I'm not able to see my, I'm not able to expand the screen. Screen share.